Hi, thank you for clicking on the video, and I hope everyone is doing really well. So today I am going to be making another reaction video to Abby Sharp. This time it is not a reaction to one of her reaction videos. I will actually be watching one of her more informative videos where she talks about an actual topic and gives tips and advice. Title of this video is How to Gain Weight the Healthy Way, Sustainable Nutrition Tips. There's a lot of channels out there for weight loss. There's not a whole lot about weight gain, and not that my channel is dedicated to weight gain at all. My channel is more about reaching a healthy weight and then maintaining, whether that is through weight loss or weight gain. My experience, my expertise, not an expert, is in weight gain. So of course, seeing this title piqued my interest because I want to see if maybe she shares the same advice that I do. Maybe she's got pointers that I didn't even think of, and I feel like it is relevant to my channel. Plus, I do enjoy her videos. So I'm gonna shut up and let's start listening to what she has to say.
Okay, so before we dive too deep into my tips here, I want to acknowledge that there are a number of reasons why many people may be looking to purposefully gain weight. I know the common narrative in our society is all about weight loss, but there's actually a lot of you who ask me specifically about how to gain weight or to eat more calories when maybe your hunger doesn't drive you to do that naturally.
She makes a good point. In a world, obviously, like she said, a world driven by weight loss, like that is the norm. People all the time are talking about their weight loss goals, their fitness goals that usually include losing a couple of pounds. There's an obsession with losing weight, and I can completely relate. That is where my ED exploded into full gear. It was when I decided I wanted to be healthy and fit, and therefore I must lose like 50% of my body weight and body fat. Not so healthy after all. So I totally get it. At my previous job, it was 100% female, and there is an obsession and an unspoken competitiveness amongst women. And so there was a lot of unwarranted and like, what's the word? Like nobody asked for it. Talk about diet and weight loss and all the like trendy, placebo new products on the market that just make you poop. And that is the primary discussion point. It's really shocking when you step out of that norm and declare, I've got no desire to lose weight. In fact, I purposefully want to gain weight. People cannot fathom this concept. Like, it's earth-shattering.
So for some people, this could be generally to just support better health, since we know that undereating and being underweight is associated with malnutrition, vitamin deficiencies, osteoporosis, decreased immune function, fertility issues, growth and development problems, and digestive issues. And that's just to name a few.
So yeah, there are a lot of downsides to being underweight. First and foremost, it's just not healthy, physically or mentally. To be surrounded by people constantly talking about their unhappiness with their body and like talking about their new idea of, losing weight, and you're just sitting there like, yeah, that's an eating disorder. I know you don't have one, but you're literally talking like you do. And maybe they do. I don't know. They have an unhealthy relationship with their body and they have some sort of self-hatred. I don't know. I'm not diagnosing. I'm just observing. There's just a lot of negative that comes with being underweight. And there's a lot of negatives that come with just losing weight when you don't have to, or you're losing weight for the wrong reasons. I feel like a lot of the people that I would interact with who had an obsession with losing weight wanted to do it for the wrong reasons and wanted to do it because they thought somehow that was going to fulfill their life, when you need to find fulfillment in your life first. And if it leads to a change, like weight loss to reach a healthier weight, that's great. And if not, that's great.
Now, folks in eating disorder recovery specifically may be trying to weight restore and improve their nutrition status, but might be struggling with blunted hunger cues. So if you've been severely restricting and now trying to eat more to gain weight, I strongly advise speaking to a registered dietitian who specializes in weight gain or disordered eating before beginning this journey.
I would agree with that. If you are going through recovery and you need to restore your weight to a healthy weight, definitely go see someone who is an expert and make sure that they are an expert in weight restoration for people with eating disorders. I don't know if I went to a nutritionist or a dietitian and she claimed she focused on people with eating disorders. The whole waiting room was just fitness magazines with underweight models and athletes, and like the waiting room alone was like a red flag. And then when she talked, I was like, I'm never seeing this person again. She's awful. I saw her twice. Yeah, make sure that the person meets you, like meets you where you are and understands your situation. And if the person you go to doesn't, find someone else. That would be my advice.
In some cases of eating disorder recovery, eating more could actually be dangerous to your health. But of course, once you get some guidance and clearance from your doctor, hopefully these tips can be beneficial to you as well. Now, others might be looking to gain weight for performance reasons related to sport or fitness goals, or just their daily activities of life.
When it comes to weight restoration for people with a underweight kind of eating disorder, it is important to remember it's not easy. It is not easy to gain weight. When you have been under eating, it's more than just eat more. And I think a lot of people think, oh, it's an easy fix, just eat more. Well, like she just said, it can be dangerous to just eat more when you haven't been eating. And I am proof of that because of the dietitian or whatever I went to, and she was so awful. And I didn't want anything to do with her, but I didn't want to have anything to do with anyone else. Plus, I didn't really want to gain weight, but I knew I had to. I did it in a not so healthy way at first, and a little bit of guidance probably would have helped me avoid some of the problems that I faced.
And then there's also a lot of you who message me about low appetite strategies in general. So whether that be related to medications like SSRIs or stimulants for like ADHD, or to health conditions like digestive disorders, anxiety, and depression. Whatever the reason, I do understand why people may feel that they need expert advice for gaining weight, and that they may want to do it in a way that supports their health long term, not just by adding calories in the form of lots of pastries and fries and soda. I mean, those foods can absolutely be part of the plan, but we still want to make sure that we're feeling our best in this process too. And that generally means eating foods that support our energy needs, cognitive capacity, and also good digestion.
You could be doing really well, eating more or just eating in a healthier way, and then all of a sudden you wake up one day with no appetite. I'm hoping that some of her tips are geared towards when you wake up without an appetite, like you still have to eat, obviously, but how do you continue your weight gain journey through those low points of low appetite? So hopefully she touches on that. I'd be interested to hear what she has to say on that.
Tip number 1, focus on calorie-dense foods. So this might seem like a bit of a no-brainer, since foods that are super high volume but low in calories can take up a lot of precious real estate in our tummy and make it really hard for us to get the nutrition that we really need. So you want to focus most eating opportunities on really calorie-dense foods that are lower in water and fiber content and higher in healthy fats or protein. So think about things like full-fat dairy, avocado, nuts and seeds, salad dressing, added oils, dried fruit, and smoothies over lots of big salads or broth-based soups.
First tip, I like focus on things that are higher in calorie and lower in volume. So a lot of people who are trying to lose weight give the opposite advice. If you're trying to gain weight, do this advice. This is from just my own personal experience. Some of the foods she listed, I do really like, but I have found that they don't always sit well with me, so I do have to be careful about consuming that. So also keep that in mind. But if you find that they don't sit well with you, maybe I would say first, cut back on the amount to see maybe it's just you're eating too much in one sitting and it's just sitting very heavy in your stomach and making you feel sick. So first cut back a little bit to see if that's the case. But if you continue to feel unwell and not good after consuming those foods, maybe try to find something else. I think a lot of people, this happens and they quit because they think they're doing something wrong. It could be just that food doesn't sit well with you. Sorry, I'm playing with my hair a lot. That would be my advice, to kind of trial and error and figure out what foods work well, especially if you're not used to eating high-fat foods. Starting to eat high-fat foods can be heavy on your stomach and your digestion.
Eat smaller meals more frequently. Eating smaller and more frequent meals not only provides more opportunities to get calories in, but is also slightly easier on your digestion and can also be psychologically less overwhelming. If you're used to eating just like a fistful of food, seeing a plate piled really high is going to probably turn you off and freak you out.
You eat first with your eyes, so if the plate is overwhelming, it creates anxiety in you and it turns you off to eating that food. So definitely eating more often, more frequently can help with that, because it's less overwhelming to see like a little snack rather than a giant meal once or twice or 3 times a day. So that is good advice. I don't typically snack anymore because it doesn't feel good to me. So that's just me. Don't do what I do, do what works for you.
Hydrate with extra calories. Research suggests that it's a lot easier to drink calories than to eat them, which is why in my weight loss video, I suggested trying to limit high-calorie drinks. But if you're actively trying to gain weight, adding calories to your beverages is actually a lot easier physically and psychologically than chewing all of that food.
Yes and no. I know what she's saying, and I agree with what she's saying. What she's saying makes sense. You gotta be careful with liquid calories. It doesn't satisfy you the same way as like eating. I'm speaking from eating disorder recovery. I feel like there's a lot of like fear around chewing. And so to counter that fear, you have to do it. And I think drinking your calories just is feeding into the eating disorder mentality. However, if you have a fear of liquid calories, obviously it is important to incorporate liquid calories into your recovery. I have mixed feelings about this tip. Like, it's like yes and no. Yes and no. It depends on the person and the situation, circumstance, and all of that. So yes and no.
Now, tip number 4, hydrate after you eat. So we discussed how choosing calorie-filled beverages is a great bang for your stomach space buck, but when you do want to just have straight up H2O, I recommend spacing your water consumption out from your meals. So drinking a ton of water before a meal can stretch the stomach temporarily and make it more uncomfortable for you to fill it with a nutrient-dense meal. So of course, hydrate when you're thirsty, but unless it's got calories, try to consume the bulk of your fluids after you've gotten your food filled.
I don't. That's all I have to say. I drink water with my meal. I usually eat a lot of very spicy food, so water is consumed along with it.
Use calorie-filled liquids in place of water in all your recipes. So still on the topic of fluid and water, you can swap in whole milk, cream, canned coconut milk, evaporated milk, or juice in place of water in a wide range of recipes. So whether you're making cereal, oatmeal, coffee, soups, sauces, or spreads, adding a calorie-filled liquid in can add a ton of flavor, a nice rich body, and extra calories without any additional bulk or the perception of having more food in your day.
That makes sense. There's a vegetable soup that I make in the winter, and I use like a low sodium tomato juice, but I also use stock instead of water to even it out. I could see where you could then add like a coconut milk if you wanted to make it almost like a bisque, like a creamy bisque. So, I mean, it could be good. It would just make a more flavorful recipe.
Dip it up. AKA make sauces, dips, and dressings your BFF. Because let's be honest, right? Like everything tastes better with a nice sauce. So now is definitely not the time to skimp. So I say add some hummus with your crackers, mix some chocolate into some Greek yogurt for dipping with fruit, and drizzle tahini over grilled veggies and meats.
Dips are definitely a fear food of mine. And at one point, condiments were also a fear food of mine. I have faced that condiment fear head on, and I am back in love with ketchup. Dips, I'm still a little bit hesitant with because I do know it's like a binge food for me. So I do have hesitation around that. But if you can handle it and you like it and it works for you, why not? The finishing key to a good dinner is the sauce. So definitely make sure your sauces are top notch.
Also, when you're in a pinch, olive oil and butter also does the trick.
My recent go-to is plant-based butter on pasta with like garlic and salt and pepper and red chili flakes and a little paprika. Butter, a drizzle of oil. It adds a lot of flavor and it just adds that little boost of fat content and calories where you might need it.
Add sprinkles to everything. So take a tip out of my toddler parenting tip book. Sprinkles make everything way more fun. And yes, this totally could be standard rainbow sprinkles that we're talking about, but it could also be really any nutritious yummies like crumbled cheese or nuts or seeds. All of my dedicated AK followers will know that I sprinkle hemp hearts onto literally everything that I eat. Smoothies, soups, salads, avocado toast, you name it. I love it.
I don't sprinkle often, but when I do, it's flax, sesame seeds. This is a fun tip if you're into like smoothie bowls and stuff because you can really get in a lot of like extra needed calories in your toppings. Coconut, shredded coconut, chia seeds, hemp hearts, dried fruit, mixed nuts, granola.
Tip number 8 is to focus on making food fun. When I talk to people who are actively trying to rekindle their hunger cues in an effort to gain weight, one of the biggest complaints that I hear is that it often can feel like a chore.
There's a lot of people who don't like to eat. And then I'm like, what do you eat? And they literally eat the same thing. There's like one thing that they eat. I'm like, maybe it's because your food is boring or you don't really know how to cook. Could it be that?
Ironically, boredom is also one of the biggest complaints that people have on weight loss diets as well. And to me, that does make a lot of sense, seeing as there really is only so much that you can do when you're limiting sauces and types of foods and other flavor enhancers when you're trying to cut calories anywhere that you can.
That goes back to my point about make sure your sauces are top notch.
But the sky is literally the limit when true abundance is the goal. So make meal times fun, exciting, and special by busting out a new cookbook and experimenting in the kitchen and heading full force into Flavor Town.
That is exactly what I need to do right now because it's not that I'm lacking appetite, I'm lacking inspiration and motivation. There's just stuff going on in my life that I'm like, I just don't have time. But I definitely want to get back into trying new recipes. I used to do this so much like 2 years ago. Like every week I would try 2 to 3 new recipes. And I just haven't been doing that. And I have countless cookbooks that I could be using for inspiration or just cooking my way through. And I'm just not. And I know I need to because I need to bring excitement back into my food. And it's not that I don't enjoy what I eat. It's just it could be more exciting because I do tend to get into a rut and eat the same things and then sometimes lose my appetite. And when I lose my appetite, I'm like, what do I even like? I totally forget foods that I like. And then I'm like grasping to enjoy what I'm eating.
Be prepared. Interestingly, again, I had the same tip in my weight loss video, which I think really goes to show that in our super busy society, healthy eating does sometimes require some intentional action on your part. This is particularly true when you're trying to eat despite maybe not having the biological drive to eat. So food has really got to be easy as f. I recommend always having a few pre-prepared meals or meal components or snacks on hand at the ready that you can just easily pop in the microwave or throw in your work bag to eliminate that extra hurdle to getting your meal or snack in.
This is a good tip, especially if you are prone to losing your appetite, because then you don't really have to think of like, what do I even want to eat right now? Oh, that's right, nothing. But there's things that you can just grab. I like her just like having all these veggies prepped and ready to go. I would recommend maybe if there's a grain that you really like, whether it's quinoa, rice, pasta, just having a bunch of it pre-prepared at the beginning of every week. If you're in a rush or you are just not, you just can't think of anything, it's there. Literally grabbing some quinoa and like some frozen veggies and that delicious sauce that I keep talking about, whatever it is, and you just throw it together. Okay, yeah, it's not the most aesthetically pleasing meal, but it's filling, it's tasty, and you're gonna hit your macro needs and make sure that there is some sort of fat included. For me recently, I've been doing a sauce plus like a chunk of butter, throw it in, call it a day.
Develop and stick to a meal routine. This is particularly important for folks in eating disorder recovery or those who don't have clear hunger cues, because you basically need to train your body to expect and need food.
Yes. I talk about this in so many of my videos. I talk about the fact that when you are in eating disorder recovery, you lose your natural hunger cues. You don't actually know when you are hungry. You've trained yourself to ignore it and not acknowledge it. So it's about relearning it. And a lot of the times it's like, oh, I eat when I'm hungry, but you're never hungry. You have to eat. So if you eat around the same time every single day, you're training your body to anticipate food. And when it doesn't get it, you start to notice your hunger.
So we call this mechanical feeding, but by feeding your body regularly and routinely, you start to actually feel hunger at those specific times as your metabolism starts to basically kick back into gear. So for some people, the easiest thing to do is to actually set alarms or like reoccurring meetings in your calendar. Basically, you're making a commitment to yourself and to your body to take care of yourself at those times. I know this feels super unnatural.
I've never had to do like the reminder to eat, but I would always have like a very strong self-aware and consciousness of like 7 p.m. start cooking, and eventually around like 6:30 hunger would kick in, and I'm like, oh, I better start cooking now so I can eat at 7. And so it becomes more natural, and if you use the reminder system, you can eventually throw it out because you are now in tune with your body.
Tip number 11 is to get social. I know this isn't always possible, and COVID has definitely made this a challenge for a lot of folks, but try to eat in the company of others.
An eating disorder tries to isolate you. How do you combat that? You counter the isolation and you surround yourself with people, because not only does it create an encouraging environment and a supportive environment, but it also makes the eating disorder shut the fuck up.
So tip number 12 is to focus on cold or odorless items. This is particularly helpful for folks who are dealing with nausea, maybe related to pregnancy or medication, or just emotional exhaustion trying to eat beyond one's cues. But if you're having just a really rough eating day, you may find it's best to avoid anything really hot or too aromatic. Most people find that a smoothie or maybe a smoothie frozen into a homemade popsicle might be easier to stomach than, let's say, a fragrant aromatic stir fry.
I can relate to that because there have been some mornings where it's like I was planning on having like a hot breakfast, but just I'm not feeling like it, and I don't really feel like eating, but I am really hungry. And so a cold smoothie or like a breakfast milkshake has kind of just been hitting the spot recently. And then I feel better afterwards. I wonder why.
Make a safe meal list. I don't mean safe foods that are diet friendly and low in calories, as many of you may have done in the past during your restrictive eating days. I mean foods that you feel that you can tolerate when you're struggling with low appetite, nausea, or lack of motivation and time, and really nothing sounds great for you to eat.
I forget the foods that I like when I don't have an appetite. I like can't remember. I've legitimately called my mom and was like, what do I even like? And she's like, I don't know. And she's like listing things. I'm like, none of that sounds good, but I guess there was a time 3 days ago that I enjoyed that. Either have a physical list or conscious list, or I probably need a physical list because I seem to never be able to remember what I actually like. So, just remembering or having those things on hand that you can just grab and be like, oh yeah, I like chocolate.
This is for those days when you've asked yourself, what do I feel like today? And ultimately, nothing comes to mind. So you need a list of easy to access foods that you at least feel neutral about. You don't have to be jazzed about them, but They're familiar and accessible enough that if you're having a day where you just can't with another meal or snack, that you know that they're gonna be there for you. These may be more bland or simple comfort foods like peanut butter toast or crackers and cheese, or they could be something totally unique to your culture and childhood. Not every meal or snack needs to be revolutionary. Sometimes they just need to nourish you in that moment to help get you by.
Good tips, good tips. Some I feel very strongly about, some indifferent to, but they make sense. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you did not enjoy it, you can give it a thumbs down. That is cool too. I don't mind. If you are not subscribed already, please consider subscribing and be sure to hit the notification bell to stay notified of all future uploads. If you have any comments, questions, video suggestions, anything at all, feel free to leave that in the comment section below. Be sure to go follow me over on Instagram, and I will see you next time. Bye!